podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
No question about that. It's supported by you, our listeners, through patreon.com/NQAT pod, where you can get access to our weekly ad-free bonus episode talking about football around the Premier League and Europe. Welcome to No Question About That. This is the weekend pod reviewing Aston Villa 2, Manchester United 1 with Wayne. He's back from what felt like eons in Florida. Florida man, how are you doing?
Florida man.
Did you meet many Florida men?
I did. I may have become one. Everything you Google is probably true. No, it was nice to take a few weeks off. Yeah, it was very nice. Nice break. Often, I think you're probably the same as me. You go away on holiday, but you still end up doing various amounts of work. That's the nature of what happens when you work for yourself. You can't turn it off. But this time, it's had such a difficult year. People who follow me on socials will know the kind of year I've had. I decided to take that time off and just enjoy it. And that's what I did. And now I'm just delighted that we've got something brilliant to talk about, Ed.
Yeah. There is a theme going on in our comments, Wayne. You guys are too negative. I'm like, okay, let's spin this one positively. United didn't play that badly.
No.
Relative to some... I mean, actually, first half, very good. I thought had large portions of control of the ball. Perhaps some of it was a bit sterile, wasn't it? It didn't create an awful lot of chances in that first half, despite having a lot of the ball. So there you go. That's the positive piece. It could have been worse. But it's another defeat. Aston Villa have won 10 in a row now. Yeah. More drop points when there's like a whole series of frustrating games in recent weeks where you like, coulda, shoulda done better there, probably. Or felt a bit like one of those.
Yeah, I was looking into the numbers before the game because I wanted to, we've talked a lot on the podcast about it being a pro Premier League and where this United team fits into the grand scheme of things, especially considering that Ruben Amorim described us as the worst United team ever. And most fans would agree with that or have agreed with it. So there's obviously some contradiction in terms that it can't be the worst United team and be this high up in the league and things like that. And so I was looking into it, and obviously when we played Spurs and Forest away from home, we had a chance of going in the top four. Right, if we'd had held on to win both those games, and if we'd had won the home games where we dropped points recently, which isn't unthinkable.
Everton, West Ham, yeah.
And Bournemouth. If we'd had collected maximum points from those 5 games, which shouldn't be an unthinkable conclusion, we'd be top of the league. We'd be top. Well, yeah. Not just in the top 4, we'd be top. They would be 1 point ahead of Arsenal. Well, we would have been before these weekend's games. And I do think that speaks to the state of the league rather than the state of United, because
a lot of flawed teams at the moment.
Yeah,
I'd say.
And you can't look at this United team and say that they're the best version of what they can be within the sum of the parts. Even if we look at them and say we know where there's improvements to be, you would never look at that, because Ruben Amorim has said even in the build-up to this game that he's failing. He admits that he's failing at the job. So the idea is to see the progression to be the best sum of those parts. And yeah, all right, at times, considering the parts were half of the team was out and we lost such a major player within the passage of the play, that we didn't play badly. Obviously, Fernandes' injury completely ruined the pace of the game for us, because we had one player who had the capability of bringing us back into that game, and that was Cunha, and he was feeling it too much. You could see that last half an hour he was carrying the weight too much. So yeah, I don't think we were ever going to get a result from that game as soon as Fernandes went off. But I thought the first half performance, it's like the Neville comment from the Bournemouth game. He said, I enjoy watching this United team play, which I understand what he's trying to get at with that. Obviously there are massive flaws in there which you can't get away from, but there are some parts of the progression of what we wanted to see under Amorim, where there's a familiarity in the system, where the players are now understanding the roles and responsibilities, even if they're not capable of playing in them. Obviously, the signings that we made had such an impact, a positive impact in terms of being Mbeumo and Cunha, that the quality of the attacking players improved a lot. So I can understand that, and it was more enjoyable to watch, but it's still more enjoyable only within the confines of the low expectations that we've got at the
absolutely.
moment.
Yeah, we've reset our expectations. Amorim talked in that last press conference about losing games in the details, and football's always won lost in the details, and especially when you have a hyper-competitive league like the Premier League is, or teams that have a lot of fault in and around the European places. I think there's structural issues too, and I think part of the sort of out-of-possession structure United have, which is like it's very aggressive man-to-man press and then drop back immediately. I mean, it's a little Ten Hag ball. Yeah. In that sense, I think that's a problem, right? I guess the coaches call that a hybrid system, but it's giving too much space to too many of the opposition players, and we scored a lot more goals in recent games, but conceded quite a few too. And I think we're seeing some of that. And then when we had to go for it, it just, again, kind of left it too long. Shea Lacey came on with, 6-7 minutes to play for his debut. Like, they had to throw them on earlier, surely. In order to, we had 7 defenders on the pitch at one stage, 4 of them across midfield. We had a midfield at one stage of Dalot, Dorgu, Martinez, and I guess Ugarte, yeah. Dearie me. I mean, I didn't expect a lot of creativity from that, let's just say that. Although Dorgu put in, at one stage, the best ball he's ever put in his life, right into Cunha's head, the simplest header you could ever have, and still managed to miss it. He was our player of the match, Cunha, as well, I think. But missed an easy one there. So I think the details really mattered. Lenny Yoro probably should have been closer to Morgan Rogers twice, I think. Given the quality of the player, didn't get there in time. He's had a difficult season, Yoro. Fair enough. He's still only 20. We've got 2 20-year-olds in the back three there. Maybe you can write off some of the mistakes there, although I think Aidan Heaven has improved by the game. I like his passing and did some really good individual moments of defending as well. A couple of great blocks in there. So I think, I kind of agree. The details do matter. It's Lenny Yoro pressing faster. It's knowing where the space is. It's taking your chances. But the structure, I kind of come to believe that it will always hold us back, right? And he's trying and trying and trying, but there's these fundamental flaws as well.
I mean, the first one being starting with Ugarte, and this was probably unavoidable. He had to do it considering the menu.
What other options were there, I guess? I mean, I guess he could have played Martinez in there, but you worry about ground coverage there. I mean, the passing's a lot better, but the ground coverage is an issue in midfield there. Although he did all right, Martinez, in the second half. His passing makes a difference. Ugarte's passing is just dreadful.
Yeah.
That crossfield pass he tried to make and just shanked it out for a goal kick. Yeah.
I've got a WhatsApp group with, because I do a separate top tactics podcast, and one of the lads on there was counting that. I'm not as cruel to do it, but I'm cruel enough to point it out. He was totting up a list of Ugarte mistakes, and I stopped checking in the group after half an hour. One of them was that attempted crossfield pass. There were a few errors that he made. We made a comment on Ugarte when we signed him, and we were talking about the pluses and minuses of basically sacrificing McTominay for him, which is what we did.
Pretty much,
we talked about it, and we did say at the time he's not good on the ball, but in that midfield three, which we were playing at the time, he can do the job what he's supposed to be doing. And then we immediately changed system, and he just doesn't fit it, which is fine. He doesn't, but but it persists. So he was always going to cause a problem because that midfield is never going to retain the ball, and it needs to retain the ball. In that system with those players, that midfield needs to retain the ball. It never does. So, all right, try and compensate for that in the other areas of the team. I think it's curious to see the comments from Amorim, and I don't want to go too much on the comments that he made about the youth team players, but I'm going to reference it only for the performances of Heaven and the introduction of Lacey and Fletcher. Felix, we also talked, I think last time I was on the pod was probably after the Spurs game, and we talked about the introduction
of
Fletcher.
Him being on the bench, yeah.
And not really being a fan of that because he's not really seen anything apart from today. No sniff apart from today. So it tells you how seriously he was taking that. He was brought into this in desperate times. And Lacey, like you said, brought on a little bit too late to make a difference. And he did all right. He had the first thing he went into was he went into a high press, which he forced a bit of an error. And then he obviously had the chance more proactive, more energetic than what we've seen elsewhere on the pitch, because Xerxes not going to deliver it. Mason Mount was all right. Heaven, to return to the point I was going to make about the youth team players and Heaven coming in, even though he's technically a signing. We've talked on this podcast before because Heaven's been present. He has had his injuries. He was injured when he came in at the end of last season when he did really well, and it was really gutting for everyone that he got injured when he couldn't see him being taken out. He was playing so well. But he's found it hard to get back in, even though there's not been an outstanding player in front of him. Now, some people are saying Shaw's played well. He's played all right this season, but has he played well enough to deny the progress of it? And Evan, when Evan's come in, and he's had to come in at centre-half in the central position, and he's been outstanding. He really has been outstanding. There are a couple of more, and this is considering we've conceded a lot of goals when he's been in the team. He was great against Bournemouth, I thought. He was great in the game we played before that. And he was good again tonight. He made 2 really crucial interventions in the first 10 minutes, which United would have been all over the place. If we'd have conceded too early on, we weren't coming back. So it was crucial to settle in the team down. He shouldn't be playing with that composure at that age. So that tells you he should already be in the side in that left central position. For me, he should be. And I think his performances are going to help him there. But the issue that Amorim has, and this ties into what he was talking about, is that, and you can see his thought pattern and you can understand it, a manager under pressure doesn't want to put youth team players in or kids in or younger players in, experienced players in. But that way of thinking is going to deny the roads of talented players. He should have been given Lacey chances earlier than this because we've been railroaded into this problem with Ahmad and Mbeumo, which were telegraphed from day one of the season because we knew they were going to be gone late. And we knew as soon as the Grimsby game was out, we needed to find an alternative solution on that right-hand side. And also Mazraoui being gone, that's 3 major building blocks on that side. So Lacey needed to get game time beforehand. I mean, he definitely needed to come on to tonight a little bit earlier on. And those problems are of Amorim's making because he's openly said that he doesn't want to give those guys chances. And the way that he talks disparagingly about it, I know that those players, Chido and Amas, posted comments on Instagram and deleted them. And
they didn't really comment. I think they just posted a bit. It was a bit passive-aggressive, I suppose.
No, yeah, it was. But I mean, I'm definitely not a Player FC person. People on this podcast will know that. But I can understand their frustration because they were blindsided by him. He didn't need to make the comments that he's made there. And that's my problem there. How are you motivating those players to come in and do a job, especially when you're not giving them a fair enough chance? And I do think, all right, I'll give the benefit of the doubt on this game because I thought we played well until Fernandes came off. And I thought we were so hit by injuries that you've been beaten by not an outstanding Villa team tonight, but an outstanding Villa side over the basis of the season. We scored 2 outstanding goals. We deserved the win in the end. Can't argue with that. And they beat us with half a team out. So I can't have any complaints with that. And I can't really have any complaints with the manager apart from, I think, just a minor grumble. I think we might have seen a little bit more fight if we'd have been giving these kids a little bit more of an earlier chance than what they've got. And if he'd just not spoken about it, it would have been better.
Oh, what did he gain from speaking about Amas and Chido Obi in the press conference? The point he was trying to make there is that, hey, guys, I know what I'm talking about. You guys are wrong. You wanted these guys in the team and they're not doing so well. So I'm right about Kobbie Mainoo. It was a kind of emotionally dysregulated response from Amorim in a press conference yet again. Sometimes shows his naivety on the pitch, quite often off it as well, I think. And yes, he needed to be braver in this game and before now to just throwing Lacey in when you're desperate. That's the worst possible scenario to come in. So
but he's done that with Mainoo in the past. So
yeah.
And the big issue with Mainoo, it's not really, people will know, they'll think I've got a Kobbie Mainoo bugbear and they do, but I'm just going to make one isolated point about Mainoo, is that he's been bringing him on in games where United have been losing, but he's also been contradicting everything that he said beforehand because he started the season saying he can only play when Fernandes isn't playing. And then sometimes he's brought him on to play in that position and moved Bruno further forward, or he's moved Bruno around, or he's put Kobbie in the defensive midfield position when we're losing, almost to say like, well, that's the point proven. And it's not the point proven. You're contradicting yourself and you're damaging the development of one of the greatest players we've had greatest players that we've developed for a generation. And he's played a part in that, a bigger part than Kobe has played in that. And I think when you see that, when you track that with that one individual that we're talking about, then you look at the other players and you think, yeah, he could have given that, especially when you look at the players. It's not his fault tonight because we had so many injuries. I just think if you've seen Agate struggle as often as we know that what he can't do in that position, take the plunge earlier on and put Jack Fletcher in. Take it or put Martinez in. Take that plunge much earlier on and take a risk there because the United fans will be more forgiving of you for taking a chance and being more adventurous with it. Yeah.
Experience a membership that backs what you're building with American Express Business Platinum. Get 2 times membership rewards points per dollar on eligible purchases in key business categories, as well as on each eligible purchase of $5,000 or more, on up to $2 million in eligible purchases per calendar year. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Walmart Business saves you time, money, and hassle, which means you can focus on what really matters, like putting the money you save back into what you do, spending more time training your team, filling orders, and finding new clients, anything and everything, right down to, oh, that's one, choosing the best hold music. Walmart Business. It's the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com.
On December 12th, Disney Plus invites you to go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in an exclusive 6-episode docuseries.
I wanted to give something to the fans that they didn't expect. The only thing left is to close the book.
The end of an era. And don't miss Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, the final show, featuring for the first time the Tortured Poets Department. Streaming December 12th, only on Disney Plus.
You know, Amorim's got many problems to solve. He doesn't have a perfect squad for the type of football he wants to play.
Yeah.
The way he wants to play, I think, has been sussed out by way too many of our opponents. It compensates for, well, I was going to say we have to compensate for its, glaring weakness, which is normally we have a man less in midfield, and that throws things off elsewhere. So he's got a lot of problems, and then I don't know what the right word is. I almost use the word cowardly. I don't know if that's quite right, but I think he needs to be braver. And I think United fans would support him for it. I mean, he gets a lot of, the other night at Old Trafford, they were singing his name again. In the Bournemouth game, the Ruben Amorim song came out. He's got a lot of support from United fans.
Yeah.
Probably more than he deserves, given the record is about a 30% win rate, which is just shockingly bad. And part of it's because he does wear his heart on his sleeve, and he's very open, too open, I'd say, for his own good sometimes, keep some of those conversations behind closed doors. But, and maybe also because he owns up to his failings. But I don't actually think it's enough to go in a press conference, yeah, I'm failing, I know I'm failing, I'm not doing good enough. Got to fucking change it, and that's where we see the skills of the coaches, right? We have known for some time we were going to lose Amanda and Bumo, and there was some speculation there'd be an adjustment in the formation to counter for it. There hasn't been, right? And so we're just playing with different players in those positions and hoping we'll get a different results, and just held on for ages with 6-7 defenders on the pitch today. Yeah. You just kind of knew they weren't going to create enough in the crucial moments. And I'm saying he's got to improve, and he's been honest enough to say that, but it's got to be more than just going, yeah, I know I'm failing, right? And if you do the same thing again and again and again, you still have problems.
It's also like the same results and the same kind of results time and time again. So it's all right saying, all right, he's making the same mistakes, which is obvious. It's an obvious point to make. And we have the same conversation every week about he said something he shouldn't have said, or he's benched Kobe again, or he's done this, he's making the same kind of things, but we're getting the same kind of results now. The one thing he did when Ten Hag was sacked and he came in, something was stabilised. And what was stabilised was, you talked a lot about it on the podcast, so it's a reference point to bring up here. The number of goals, the number of shots we were letting in a goal was obscene.
Yeah, under Ten Hag. Oh God,
he was really high, and for the first, probably up until the end of the season, Amorim stabilised that without any question. He did, but the performances were almost identical to how we were today, and that was you play really well. Actually, there are good moments of good football in there, and perhaps it's due to putting Mount in, putting Fernandes in. You've got better technical footballers who were able to make more attractive passages, movements. At the end of last season, Kobe was playing in there as well. So the interchange between those players was really good in the system that we were playing. But we'd played really well for 40 minutes and then we'd concede a goal. And then the confidence would go and you couldn't see a way back. And that happened too many times last season. And that's exactly what happened today. Now, there's a caveat in there, a huge caveat, in that we had... the other caveat I will say is that we've shown some good efforts of recovery this season. We've shown good signs of scoring late goals. We did it at Forest. We did it at Spurs.
Yep.
We did it against Bournemouth as well. The comebacks are there. United have come back in games and they've showed a resilience, which I think is a really encouraging sign under a manager. But you never saw that today. And there is a caveat that we had all those players missing. But I think that it could have been present if he'd have been a bit braver. I do, because I don't think the gap was that great. And I think...
I agree. I think he talked previously, didn't he, about Cunha and Mbeumo bringing new mentality to this team. And you can see it, right? They've not been scarred by the sins of the past, have they? And they're just here. They both actively wanted to join the club and they're desperate. And you can see it in Cunha all the time, his desperation to, get the win for United. And that has helped change some of the mentality of the side. And bringing those young players in, Heaven's not been scarred by a decade of shitness. I mean, there's time, folks, for us to ruin him. And I don't know. I mean, we could still have lost if he'd been, played Jack Fletcher from the start or Shea Lacey from the start, right? Could still have lost, of course, right? Yeah. But I think you can be more forgiving then. And look, let's not say that chances weren't created. I mean, Benjamin Sesko had a great one after, I don't know, pretty early on, wasn't it? When he was through 1-on-1, good save by Martinez, the Cunha header we've mentioned. The details there, United could have, should have got a draw out of that.
Yeah.
I don't, would we have deserved it on the basis of 40 minutes playing well? Probably. I mean, wasn't much in that second half, but, fashioned enough shots and enough chances to get something out of the game. And that's a bonus because there were way too many games last season. You were like, you can almost tell from minute one that it was going to go wrong. And so, something better at pressing, better at those high turnovers, do create more chances in the past, let fewer shots in than under Ten Hag, still conceding some goals.
Yeah.
There are some improvements, but we have to completely recalibrate how we think about this club and where we want to be, and I guess that's inevitable if you finished 8th and then 15th. You had a decade of pretty much total failure. But we're going to finish 7th or 8th or something like that this season. We're just too inconsistent to be any higher up, it would seem. Is that good enough? I mean, £1 billion of talent on the pitch, according to United's own books, should be better, I think.
Yeah, especially in this league. I think that people might come at me for this. I think it's there to be qualified for the Champions League. I think it's really open to do that. And I think United should be looking to do that with the players that they've got, albeit not at the moment because there's too much of an issue. With too many injuries and stuff like that. Obviously I'm taking that into account when summarising today's game as well. But by and large, when that squad's available, they to qualify for the Champions League at the moment in this Premier League, the way that it's going this season. That's my belief anyway. Today, there was that rocky first 5-10 minutes. Evan did really well. A couple of occasions, they had a couple of chances in there that sort of flashed across goal. But apart from that, there wasn't anything. I thought United were all right in the second half as well. They were all right to hold out for a draw in the second half, but they were undone by Yoro. Basically, look, he has had a rocky few games. I don't think he's been poor all season. I think he actually was playing well for a while at the start of the season. I just think
he was, and then he got dropped, and he came back, and he's been shit ever since.
Yeah, you can see maybe the confidence has hit him, but also the kind of goal like Rodgers isn't going to score goals like that again. Well, he might do through his ability, but he's not going to do it through the absent-mindedness of defenders anymore. And Yoro, that's a very important lesson for him. Doubly so because he allowed the same thing to happen twice in the game.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you can then go like, well, that's a permanent fault in a player that he's got a blind side.
Look, we've seen his quality. I think the raw ingredients are, where he goes from here is the question, right? It's going to be about his fitness, how fast he learns, the environment he's in. But I think we've got the raw ingredients there for a very, very good player. Rio Ferdinand at 19-20 made a lot of mistakes, turned into a brilliant player. I think it's all right, but there's obviously a challenge in this team and with its dysfunction. And he's been in and out of the side and playing in different positions, mostly on the right, I guess, of that back three. But he's made a lot of errors as well. I guess that's inevitable. And I guess that has an impact on his confidence as well. Can't see it.
Yeah, and look, they were good goals, by the way, as well. But there's 2 points I want to make about this, because first is that if we'd had the players out that we needed to be on the field, maybe even if we just had Fernandes on there, we'd have drawn the game. We wouldn't be saying that this is costly. We'd just say it's a learning curve for Yoro. Now it's costly because we've lost the game, and he's going to have to cut that out and step up a little bit, because senior football at that level, even for teenagers or early 20s, is unforgiving. The point I was going to make about what you were saying there about the young players is that you can't win anything with kids game. Had a number of players who were injured and a number of senior players called into play who were rusty as well. So you had those players out, and then you had the likes of Beckham and Neville, who were still rusty at that time in terms of first team experience, and they got battered. And so you can expect those kind of things to happen. We go back to the bravery of the manager then. You say, if he starts with those players, I think for me it's the repetition of the errors that are being made within the system, because you can tell that Agate can't do what you want him to do. So try something different. And if that something different was playing Jack Fletcher from the start, we'd be infinitely more forgiving. And I don't think we'd be any worse off tonight talking about it. But on the balance of the game, particularly the way that the second half went, I don't know. I feel like I'm being very critical of Amorim on this podcast so far, and I guess I am, but I do want to put an underlying point here, is that I didn't think we played poorly, and I think that against a good Villa team with 3 or 4 more players fit, I think we could have got a result there, and I do think that that's enough. I don't want to go as far as what Gary Neville said in saying that I really enjoy watching this United team play, or there's something there. But there is something there enough to say, I feel like there's a progression there. I don't feel like now I'd be saying Amorim out, but there are things in there that I just think he could use these players being out, like Ahmad, Mbu, probably Fernandes now, although less of a case. He could use that as an opportunity to put in some of these kids, and I think it would solve a massive problem for him. Not in terms of results. I don't think, we'll win or lose, that doesn't really matter. But I think performances and connection from the crowd, and also moving some of those underperforming players out, because it shows then he hasn't got a massive blind spot, and that he's more in tune of what the club's about. He was professing to know about it the other day when he was saying this is Manchester United, these are the standards. But he needs to be showing that as well. And this is an opportunity. This period now, including today's game, is a real big opportunity for him to do that.
Well, he's... I don't know that he does get United, actually, because his comments about younger players the other day kind of shows that he doesn't, I think, culturally. But, he does get the thing about attacking football will be rewarded by the crowd. We've got the second best XG in the league this year. That has changed. But I was just looking up 6th in terms of the number of goals we've conceded. Like, there's only 5 teams who've conceded more goals than United, and that's been the essential problem. And that's why we're 7th at the moment. And we'll end up around there unless we can solve that problem. And he could really do with one of De Ligt and Maguire being back. Just that one senior player probably makes it, De Ligt has been having a pretty good season. I think it's fair to say he's a good box defender. A few of those basic errors that, we're allowing cheap goals in can be cleared up then. So there's some, you can forgive some of this. It's not under his control, but the stuff that is under his control, I think he's made some mistakes, Ruben, and it's had an impact on the team. And, it's in the end, his job will be on the line. Now, and it's not like I'm saying Ruben's got to go right now, but I think with the system he plays and the amount of time it's going to take to overhaul the squad completely in order to get 2 players in each position that are comfortable with Ruben's system, I just don't know I think he's got a ceiling, right? He's not going to get a lot of cheap results from crappy performances because we basically have to have 11 players playing really well for us to get a good result at the moment. And that's not going to happen enough. And, his job will be on the line in the summer because he'll have a year left on his contract. Are they going to leave a lame duck manager in there that hasn't qualified for Europe? No chance. If they do, then they may give him another contract. And, so he's got to realize that he doesn't want to go down as another manager who failed at United. He surely wants to succeed. It's his reputation. He's taken on this massive job, his second job, massive club, loads of scrutiny, and that stink will stay with him for a long time if he fails here. And so he's got to think whether he's going to do the same thing over and over again or take a few risks. And
well, if I could just interject on that, just to make a final point, with that in mind, is if you look back at the other managers, I wrote something about this on my Substack the other day, but if you look at some other managers in United history, and I'll pull them out, and I'm not comparing them in styles of football completely, maybe in terms of risk-averse nature. Dave Sexton, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, Eric Ten Hag, all these 4 managers, and I'm not comparing philosophies, but what I'm talking about is brand of football was displeasing to United fans for large periods of time.
Yeah.
And their best moments tended to be in the chaotic moments when they were by accident rather than design. And the accident was usually manager was on the brink and they were forced to gamble to keep their job. And I'm not saying that Amorim's there at all. What I'm saying is that the best moments we've seen from Amorim are too identical to that pattern. When you look at the Lyon game last season, he threw Mainu and Maguire up front. That's obviously not sustainable. They're not a front 2, but that's the best moment of his reign so far. We won against Lyon. He's indulged in the chaos. Liverpool 4-3, Ahmad scoring, Ten Hag. For those listening who've got old enough memories there, Dave Sexton's best moments were probably a win against Porto where he lost 4-0 in the first leg and he had to tell everyone to just go out and attack like the dockety team that they were. And then the 5-minute FA Cup final where they came back and he had to, they had to go hell for leather, which wasn't a Sexton style in the last few minutes. Under Moyes, best moment was Olympiacos when we lost in the first leg.
I was going to say when he was fired, that was the best moment, wasn't it? But yes.
Well, no,
Olympiacos,
the point I'm making is that that's not by Moyes' design. It's as a counter action to that design. Van Gaal, the influx of the kids coming in, which energized the connection with the crowd and saved that job for a little period of time. Under Mourinho, all of it was terrible to watch, apart from he was on the brink of losing his job, and he did lose it a few weeks later, but we played Newcastle at home, we were 2-0 down, and we came out and we won 3-2 in the second half. But probably the best moment. It was very unlike a Mourinho team to play the way that we did in that second half. And what I'm saying is Amorim's followed that pattern. Now, you don't have to read a thesis of Manchester United to understand that very quick walk down history lane to now go, all right, well, there's reward for risk. You don't have to risk all the time, but you've got more reward for risk than the path that you're going down and the path that you're stuck down at the moment. If you take those chances, you'll get more games like the Lyon game. And yeah, all right, you might lose some along the way, but I think we're losing games along the way anyway.
Yeah.
Not as many this season, but we're losing them anyway. But if you are developing other things, the point I was making earlier about where we were at the start and where we are now is we've seen some pretty football today, and we might not have lost if all the players are on the pitch. Is that enough progress for you, Ed? I'm asking you now to answer the question. Is that enough progress for you in a year from where he started from?
I don't think it is. How do you rank the progress, right? There's scratch a little bit beneath the surface, I guess, and you can see, we're scoring more goals. Like that's it, really. In terms of individual player performances, I guess he's managed to find a reasonable sort of 7 out of 10 standard from Luke Shaw every week. Casemiro's been improved. I think a lot of that's physically. He is able to play for an hour once a week, not 2 lots of 90 minutes twice a week. You know, there's not enough improvement, you know, surely. And I know there are flaws in this squad, and there's a lot of players who are not living up to their transfer fees and or wages or both, or reputations. You know, we know that. You can't have failed as often as United have these last few years. There's also been a lot of changes, right? If you look at a squad from 2 years ago now, there's a lot of players who've left as well, some at Ruben's direction. He's got, 4 players in this summer, plus Dorgu, and then he's booted a bunch out, who may or may not have deserved it, probably did, based on their performances. And have we got enough as a result? You know, we're a point behind Sunderland, one of the newly promoted teams, whereas level with Crystal Palace, who are having to play twice a week with a squad that's not built for it. So it doesn't feel enough. I mean, he's going to get the rest of the season, so I never feel like I need to feel like there's some kind of binary choice. Ed says out or Ed says in. It doesn't matter what I think at all. So, which people in the comments often tell me in less polite fashion. Thanks, guys. Love you too. So, you know, I think the judgment will come at the end of the season. He'll have had 18 months in the job. And if United are 7th or 8th and don't have a European place, then he'll probably go because, you know, the management are impatient and ruthless. And whatever Jim Ratcliffe said about giving him 3 years, you can't have 3 years of playing shit. So there's got to be enough progress. And it's also you're benchmarking against not just where we've been, but all the other teams around you. It's called the league table, you know? Yeah. It's 7th or 8th isn't good enough for United.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire wrong. So our orders get all backed up. We're drowning in paperwork, then actually drowning. Carol is fighting off sharks with a stapler, and pirates are pillaging the office copier, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant goes beyond the resume, using unique insights to deliver a smarter shortlist. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Good morning, Crust. It's a great day to be a bread brother.
Ugh, mornings are not my jam. Or jelly.
Oh, come on. Stop loafing around.
I just woke up feeling hollow inside.
Psst, just grab one of the new Morning Uncrustables sandwiches, like Bright-Eyed Berry or Up and Apple, filled with 12 grams of protein and tons of deliciousness. Crust, what are you eating?
It's just granola, not even yogurt.
No crust, no fuss. Uncrust your mornings.
Especially this league table as well. This Premier League in particular. I look at the other managers that we've post-Ferguson, and I feel like good or bad, we're able to track what's happening. And I think everything under Amorim has felt so ambiguous that, and maybe even muddled up by the fact that he's been so, if that makes any sense, the fact that he's been able to call it out immediately and score, because you would normally get a manager telling you, rather, you know what I mean? He said things off the pitch are going great. That's what he said, like, off the pitch, I'm the right man. Which means nothing, really. It's a complete intangible. Well, what I mean by intangible is that if you look at what's happening on the pitch, it is also ambiguous. And you look at it now and you look at where we are from where we began under his tenure. And yes, he did initially sort the defence out. And yes, some defensive issues aren't his fault because of the fact got injuries. But you would have thought with a more pragmatic system, you would offer less chances. And I think this season we've gone backwards in that regard. That's the only, if you look at something that looks like an actual metric and you say, well, this is where we are from where we started, we look worse defensively. The system isn't helping that. And we look, like you said up front, I think that's more an individual.
Individuals, yeah.
Rather than a systemic thing. I think you look at Cunha and you look at Mbumo, and I'm adding in tandem with him sometimes. You say, well, that's where all the quality is. And Bruno, obviously, his numbers never lie with him. But then that's it. That's it. Everywhere else is generally poor. And that's, I think, on the manager not finding solutions because and this is bringing it back to today's game, is that he's not finding solutions on a game-by-game basis. He's kind of going, I'm sticking with this, and hopefully it'll go right in the end. Whereas he must adapt. He must adapt. And the thing for me over the Christmas period, and it started with today, and he had an opportunity to do it with Fletcher and Lacey. Even I can understand why you would have hesitation there when you're at United, but the quicker he realises that he can afford to take that gamble without it costing him any goodwill from anyone, that he will actually enhance that relationship and connection. The quicker he realises that, the better for him. And that's an adaptation. And I just think in his brain, because he's been so resolute on this, like, I'm not changing anything, God's personnel or the shape of the team, I'm just going to persist all the way through. Doing anything will lose face. I think, well, actually, no, now it's the opposite. You've got so many injured players. Do it.
There's your chance.
Don't have to lose any face at all.
No, I totally agree. Oh, God, I was willing that shot from Lacey to go in. He got that one on his left foot. We've seen enough of those in the under-18s and just straight down the keeper's throat. I mean, it's disappointing. It's so many, as you said, one of those games that were winnable would be much higher up the table, ifs and buts, details, all of that. And, unfortunately, that happens too often for it to just be details, I think. All right. We've got a couple of big things coming up. We've got Newcastle on Boxing Day. They're having a mixed bag of a season too, very much so, although they were dreadful against Sunderland. I don't know whether you saw that one. I think they got 0.1 XG. They were a good win against Fulham yesterday. They've given us some problems in the past in that central midfield area. They've had the big shock of Isak leaving and it dragging out. And although I think Nick Foltemada's been really good, of the strikers that moved this summer, he's been the best of them.
Yeah,
I think. Like 9 foot
and
tall.
For Sunderland. And for Sunderland as well.
Cracking header. It's great. It's great. I know, you ever seen that clip on socials of a bunch of drunk guys trying to play football? It's very funny. It goes around now and again. And that was Nick Foltemada heading into his own net, bullet header. So it's going to be a tough one, though, because, Casemiro will be back. He just got the one game ban, didn't he? Bruno, though, hobbling around, didn't come out for the second half. It looks very unlikely he'd be available for that one. Cobby, unclear how serious his injury is, or whether it was an injury to Ruben's pride or not.
Yeah, I
don't believe that, by the way, but yeah.
No, but he said a few weeks and didn't make me think, you wouldn't any time frame, would you? I don't know. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt now. But yeah, it looks like Cobby out as well.
So, I mean, who's going to be in midfield? Casemiro and Ugarte?
I think I would take the bullet. Fletcher, put him in.
I wouldn't really call him a defensive player, really.
No, I wouldn't. But I think he's a more...
Along Casemiro.
More a traditional midfield player, like his dad. So put him in there alongside Casemiro. Allow it to tick over. That's probably... You look at the likes of... It might be unfair. I'm not comparing them in terms of quality, but like Wharton and Anderson. Anderson's more of a driver, I guess. Wharton, midfielders will keep things ticking over, and there's nothing wrong with that. We probably need one of those, and Fletcher can do that. And if he puts Lacey on as well, Fletcher and Lacey from the start, Heaven keeps his place in the side. I think, I wouldn't predict a win. I think we've probably got enough in there for a draw, because I think the crowd will be up for that, and I think there'd be a good connection rather than the sort of like frustration that we see all the time. Because you can see sometimes as well some of the players, and Cunha did this a lot today, the hero kind of chance, like trying to take the pressures on. But how many times do you see Ugarte do it? He's done it so many times where the ball drops to him at the edge of the area, and he does it every single time. And usually we'll lose him with 2 minutes to go, and he tries it. You just need a functional midfielder to just move the ball along. Sometimes you don't need someone to be the hero. You need someone to feed the ball to the better players to create the chance. And if we do that, if he takes the risk, if he takes the gamble that's there for him to take quite safely, in terms of reaction rather than performance, that's a reaction rather than result. Because Newcastle are a good side, and they could well win at Old Trafford again, as they have done before. Then I don't know. I just think sometimes you have that feeling, don't you, like Boxing Day game, the crowd more for it. You can probably, this is the time to take that gamble. I would have said that about today as well, but I think like just take the plunge with that. Maybe even change that system a bit and pack the midfield, play a bit safer, put Mount a little bit deeper, ask him to just be a little bit more sensible.
Yeah, he has to occasionally create a box midfield, so they could think about that. I mean, I think the problem is he's never really been able to find a balance between the attack and defence, right? I mean, obviously, right? Yeah. We can't seem to do both, defend well and create enough chances to score goals. So I do worry when you get two defensive players in those wide areas, in those wing-back roles. Not that Dallow's been playing badly recently. I think his performance levels have been all right, but all right for him is a 7 out of 10, isn't it? So, but neither him nor Dorgu really create anything. I mean, the data says that, albeit Dorgu put in a wonder cross today, which he's just never done in his life. I think that really causes a problem because United just don't have any penetration in those wide areas. And as well as Mount has been playing, he's not a player that gets double figures assists in a season ever, really. I think he's done it once. He just, he keeps the ball moving and coaches love him because he's very structured in when he presses and everyone can follow him, right? But he doesn't create enough. So how are United going to create enough chances? Well, maybe 6 shots on goal today wasn't bad, actually, but enough to score enough goals, given that it was leaky as fuck at the back.
Well, and that number was massively affected when Bruno came off as well.
Yeah,
so let's remember that. Yeah. And he brought Sesko off, which you can understand is still looking a bit fatigued after the injury. By mixing it up, and like Cunha's he's a good live wire in there, maybe play him through the middle, but put a lot of energy around him, put Lacey in because he's going to be unpredictable for the Newcastle defence. I don't know what you do on the left. I really don't, because that's where the issue with the injuries is going to lie. Whether or not Cobby is fit and you can play him in that inside 10 in that position, because then you've got the ability of Cobby and Mount to interchange in there.
I mean, it sounded like he won't be, but maybe.
No, I know, and he probably won't be. I'm playing wishful thinking to that. But there are options there. I think as an optimist, you go like, well, we can make a change and go Bravens, but all the records of this manager tell us, faced with this dilemma, he will be more pragmatic. He will pack out, he'll go the other way. And I think the issue, and we said this in the Ten Hag era, the personnel hasn't changed that much to make this not the case now. United don't have safety in numbers defenders because they don't have the quality to do that. They've got one outstanding defender in Delay. They've got two good prospects in Euro, still not a natural defender. What I mean by this, I'll counter this before I get pulled on it. He doesn't sniff danger in the way that Delay sniffed danger. Delay's a Vidic. He's a Steve Bruce, a Paul Parker. These players who love defending and they're there to defend. So Delay's one of those. We don't have another one of those. Maguire, you might say that, but I still think he's too bold on the ball. Headman is really probably got a little bit of that about him, but we've still got a lot of issues in there. Show's too casual. Dogu's positioning can be heavily questioned at time. Dallow's obviously can be. So United never have safety numbers. Ugarte's, especially in the two, he can't offer anything defensively. So the more that United go that way, the more they create problems for themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
And that I think that's what he'll probably do anyway, because that's the most senior bodies are available in that area of the pitch than they are the other area. That's the concern.
It's looking like a really tough period. I mean, we've got Newcastle mixed bag of games, sure, in terms of their performances, kind of just not scoring as many goals as they should, really. And, I guess Eddie Howe will be fighting for his job at the end of the season. That'll be how many years at Newcastle? 4 years, 3 under the Saudis or whatever it is. We obviously got the Wolves game at home and they are truly dreadful. So that's a gimme. You one would hope. Leeds away. I mean, they're playing well at the moment. They just spanked Palace.
Yeah.
Scoring goals. Calvert-Lewin, who some people suggested could arrive at United last summer. Didn't we? Although we could do with some backup forwards at the moment. Scoring goals. I think he's got 3 in his last 2. We've got the Brighton FA Cup game just after the new year as well. That's one chance of, that's a place in Europe. That cup is kind of important, given that we're only having one game a week. Take that one seriously. So it's a tough period for Ruben, and he has to find some solutions, because going out there with 5 defenders, again, we know that United just will not, and without Mbeumo and Ahmad, so a bit of the magic, and possibly without Bruno for weeks if it is a proper hamstring tweak. He's going to have to find another solution, because otherwise we just know that United will not create enough to win games.
Apart from Dogu's cross, Fernandes with his hamstring still hit the pass of the game.
Left foot, yes.
Mad. Only Bruno could do that, by the way. I'm an optimist by heart, but the pessimist in me looks at that run of games and says, even that run of games, even Wolves at home, feel like they will see an opportunity to win at Old Trafford. They've won at Old Trafford before.
They can't. They've got 2 points all season. They've been dreadful.
Yeah, I know, but they weren't that bad against us for a little bit.
For that 15 minutes just before half time, yeah.
And I think if you've got, this is why I'm talking about taking the gamble, because you can't turn that crowd against you. This is why this period is, and they're not massive games for United, but they're massive games for Ruben Amorim, because this is, throughout the period of his time in charge, what we can say for sure is he hasn't improved. You mentioned 2 players, but he hasn't improved the squad. He hasn't come in as a manager and gone, so taking what I've inherited and I've made this much better. He hasn't done that, so he's not that kind of manager. Fine, he might offer something else. So what that something else needs to be is proven within this next 2 weeks, when we've got so many backs to the wall. And this is what I'm saying, about the risk taking and putting in players who you wouldn't give a chance to do that now, to bring those players in, to give them the opportunity, because you're not going to lose anything in terms of the action from the crowd. And even if you lose the games, I think if you don't pick up wins in these games, and you're pragmatic, the fans will turn quickly. They are back,
and they haven't done yet, but they could.
They're backing at the moment. But I think, given the circumstances, given the fact that there's an opportunity for him to do that, if he neglects to take the opportunities that are there for him to actually gimme, because they might not get the results or the performances, you give him some breathing space and say, I will take a chance if it needs to be. Or I've spotted the trend of inconsistency and I'm addressing it rather than contradicting myself. Like Ugarte, or when if Maguire or De Ligt comes back in, if Heaven keeps his place and Shaw moves out, as well as Shaw's done, or if Shaw moves over to left, even though I don't think he's mobile enough to play out there anymore. The point being that don't let Evan be the one that drops out now, because he's played well enough to keep his place. He's definitely played well enough to keep his place.
It would be interesting to see if he mixes any of that up defensively. Yeah. I'm sure he's played basically every game this season, and he's been steady enough. But if I thought he was mobile enough and his body could stand it, I would be very tempted to move him to left wing back, because you know that his quality in those final third areas, where United get a lot of the ball in those areas, is much higher than Patrick Dorgu's. Sadly, I wish Dorgu had developed over this past year, but he basically hasn't, and that's just an observation. That's not me shitting on a young player. There's still time for him. Newcastle rested Voltemade, Elanga, Gordon, and Tonali against Fulham. So I'm guessing they'll all be back, although Elanga's having a real stinker of a season, isn't he?
Yeah.
Got that massive move, and then he's been shit, basically. But there you go. So maybe he won't be back in. I assume Anthony Gordon will be back in, and Voltemade for Vissa probably, but although Vissa can play on the right as well. And they've had problems in the fullback areas, haven't they? They had a lot of injuries to Lewis Hall, and who else? I think Miley played at right back yesterday, didn't he? So a midfielder as well. So, they've got some issues as well. Obviously very inconsistent. There's an opportunity for United. It's just so many players out. And we've said all pod, looking for Ruben to take some risks, play it safe here. And I think we'll be handing momentum over to Newcastle.
But what you'll see with Newcastle and with Wolves is that they will go for it all. So they'll play a strong side. They'll bank on United being pragmatic, and they'll have a lot of joy. Even Wolves will have a lot of joy in creating opportunities. Well, let's that with the caveat of this United team with the injury crisis and no players coming back. They will have joy and they'll play well. So the onus is on United and what they do to counteract that, which you wouldn't even think is a logical conversation to be having about this Wolves side, because they are so poor in this Premier League. They are so
I'm not
poor.
having that. I'm not having this. They are not winning at Old Trafford. That'll be it.
I'm not saying that they are, but I'm not convinced that we can win against them.
Don't you dare ruin my Christmas. Deary me. Yeah. It's my birthday tomorrow. It's my birthday. It's quite a big one as well. And United lost. You bastards.
Yeah.
And I've got because I did had a couple of early celebratory drinks yesterday. Thanks.
Oh.
Thank you.
Before we leave, Ed,
yeah.
I did have a little section of the podcast I wanted to talk about, and you brushed past it.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
Prepared it especially, you know that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's called the Nepo.
Some good history nerding.
Nepo baby section, with Jack Fletcher coming on, and obviously being one of Darren's sons. I spent 2 minutes of the match compiling a list of players and then challenging Ed to come up with different ones. Oh, dear listener, dear viewer, feel free to add names that we've forgotten. Yeah, I do think it's funny that in all of United history, dedication to bringing through young players, that you don't really see a massive number of Nepo babies through the team. You would expect to see more of that. So I went through my memory, digging as many as I could out. So these are players who've played for United, who've got some familial connection, either through a father being a player, or a coach, or a director at the club. There will be more. This is just a brief run through, and this is just.
Have you got full 11 yet? See if you can make a full 11. Probably not. No.
Goalkeeper.
Have a problem with the keeper there, I think.
We might have a problem, although Kasper Schmeichel was probably there doing trials as a kid. I would have imagined.
You got any pictures of him with the United shirt on?
Just the one from '93 when he's in the tunnel with Paul Ince's kid. But Tom Ince doesn't count either. So John Aston Jr. is one of the most obvious.
More than 100 times for United, so yeah.
Man of the match in the European Cup win. Recently, by the way, had a stroke. His family, complete diversion here, his family are fundraising. If you look for John Aston on the internet, if you search him up, they're fundraising for medical bills. That's done through the former players. So if you are in a giving mood, if you've got something to give, and you want to support a former player, he's man of the match of the 1968 European Cup final. A player who definitely deserves that help. Funnily enough, a point on John Aston is the crowd were really against him because of the nepotism. At this period of time, Busby really wanted to give his son Sandy a chance. He was a promising footballer. He went and played. I think he played for Blackburn. He never got a chance at United. Busby sold a player earlier in his career, Don Gibson. Don Gibson married Sheena Busby. And as soon as news of their engagement came out, crowd turned against Don Gibson, saying he was only playing because of his engagement. So he was sold within weeks of his engagement. Sold to Sheffield Wednesday. Brutal from Busby. Jimmy Murphy's sons, you would have thought that he had a lot of sons that they might play. Nick Murphy was a reserve team player. Really nice guy, Nick. He's a midfielder. He only got on the bench for a senior game once, I think. And he admitted that the pressures were too great. And I don't think he loved being there at that time. That was the time of George Best, Bobby Charlton, and everyone like that. In the aftermath of the Munich disaster, Phil Murphy, one of Jimmy's other sons, came in to make up the numbers. Imagine going in to make up the numbers for Manchester United. That was
I mean, if you were being cruel about you garbage in midfield, you'd say that, wouldn't you?
He played, I think it was a B team game. I think he even played in the reserves in the first few weeks after Munich. Oliver Gill, David Gill's son.
Do you remember?
He
quit football to go off to university to study to be something, and I can't remember. An accountant or an architect or something.
Yeah, but he definitely left the game very early on. Tommy Docherty, two of his sons were in the youth team in the In the 70s, Paul McGuinness, son of Wilf McGuinness, who I think Wilf McGuinness, if you're going to argue that a person was created by Manchester United himself, then Wilf McGuinness might be the son of Manchester United. And Paul was the son of him. Leeds United, both of them do. Darren Ferguson obviously won a Premier League title under Sir Alex, who's dad. And I always used to find it funny that Sir Alex would call him Darren Ferguson. As if to not call him my boy Darren, just Darren Ferguson. More recently, Mellen Mullenstein, his son was very young when he was playing at United, but he's now a Dutch centre-half. He was always a Dutch centre-half. He's playing in the Dutch league, I think. Ryan Giggs' son, who's now playing elsewhere. Harvey Neville, who's Phil Neville's son. JC Carrick, just breaking through the kids' teams now. Michael Carrick's son. Charlie Savage, Robbie Savage's son. Kai Rooney, who was breaking through the age barriers and looks tremendous prospects, by the way. And Ronaldo's son, who was there recently before he followed. I don't know where Ronaldo's son is now. I presume he's in the Al Nassr Academy until he breaks through. That was about as much as I could come up with. I'm sure that there's a couple more that I've forgotten in there. But yeah, I thought Nepo babies.
Not quite a full 11, but it's getting there. It's getting.
No, I mean, I'm sure that
Paul Scholes' son. No, not. He doesn't look like a footballer.
No, there's Jim Ryan's son Neil was I think he was a reserve team player. And he coached at the club, coached for a long time at the club actually. So if you look at Aston was a midfielder, Nick was a midfielder, Oliver Gill midfielder,
defender. Yeah.
Paul McGuinness, I think he was a defender. Ferguson midfielder, Mullenstein midfielder, defender, Giggs midfielder, Harvey Neville midfielder, Charlie Savage midfield heavier. Kai Rooney can play up front. So we've got some forward options there. Knowing the way the things are, I have Rooney and Gabriel up front for the Newcastle game. You never know. But not quite in 11. You'd be losing out in defence and definitely in net. You'd have to stick one in. I don't know if
very good.
De Gea's got a young son who can step in.
Maybe, yeah. All right. Well, write in if you've got any others for the Nepo 11. We haven't quite filled it out yet. A decent five-a-side team in there somewhere. Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Wayne. You can find Wayne on the internet. He does his own pod. Several, in fact. One with Paul Parker, the Tactics Pod. Got your Substack. Find him on the socials. And now he's returned from Alligator Alcatraz, where he was stationed for like a month or two. Shouldn't laugh. Really grim. But I did wonder. I was like, is he ever coming back to Blighty?
Want to.
Yeah. Well, a bit of sun. I see you're getting on in years. The temptation to become a snowbird and head down to Florida for the winter.
Creaky bones. Yeah, I quite happily do it, but it must work. Buy books, please.
Yeah. Buy Wayne's book so he can retire to Florida. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. You can catch us on the Patreon for our extra show, patreon.com/NQAT pod. And otherwise, we'll see you after Newcastle. Bye now.